Stop letting your lower back take over. Because if you feel your lower back working during the plank, your abs aren't getting the full benefit of the movement. Hey guys, it's Corey from Redefining Strength. Planks are a must-do basic that all too often we're not getting the most out of. That's why today I want to talk about 3 common mistakes I see and what you can do to fix them to get more out of your planking. Because the plank is one of those movements that, while basic and fundamental, shouldn't ever really feel easy. Experts know that they always have to go back to the basics, and the more you can dial in those basics, the more you can do some of the fun stuff and really get the results that you want. So if you think the plank is easy, think again, and I'm going to share with you 3 ways to get more out of your planking. But first, I want to talk about the benefit of planks. So planks are a stability movement for our core. They help us establish that mind-body connection, especially when we use them in our warm-up. And it's key that we really activate our core so that we don't overuse our lower back during squats or deadlifts or some of the other lifts that we might include. By working on the stability of our core, we can prevent lumbar hyperextension, so we won't overload our lower back. So if you're going to include the plank, think about including it as part of your warm-up, or even as a finisher. But I want to talk about how you can get more out of it. So what are 3 common mistakes and how can you fix them? The first mistake I always see is people trying to hold longer. We see all these competitions where people are trying to hold for hours at a time. There's all these 1-minute planking challenges. But all too often, when we're so focused on holding longer, we're not actually focused on the muscles that are working. We're resting on our hip flexors. We're letting our lower back take over. We're not actually engaging everything optimally. So if you're going to plank, instead of focusing on holding longer, focus on holding harder. Think about creating shakeage, which is my very technical way of saying creating muscles that are shaking. You want your muscles to shake because you're engaging everything as hard as you can. You're using that mind to create those muscles. So you're activating the muscles as much as possible. So as you hold the plank, instead of just trying to hold longer, think about what is actually working. Think about engaging your upper back to support your shoulders. Think about bracing your abs. Think about flexing your quads. Engage the muscles as hard as you can. Why waste time holding for a minute when you can get more out of 20 seconds? So the first mistake is holding longer over holding harder. The fix, simply focus on what you actually feel working and try and engage those muscles as quickly as possible. The more advanced you are, the more you may find you can actually get everything shaking in like 10 seconds. Mistake number 2 I see is that people forget it's a full core movement. They focus on their abs or they focus on only their shoulders because their shoulders hurt, and they don't drive back through their heels. So as you plank, remember you're engaging everything between your shoulders and your knees. You need to drive back through your heels instead of pushing forward onto the balls of your feet. You might also find that you want to actually bring your hands together and let your elbows flare out. When you let your elbows flare out, you're actually packing your shoulders, and this can allow you to engage your back to support your shoulders. So if you ever feel like during planks your shoulders get overloaded and that's really the reason why you can't hold longer, doing this positioning might be optimal over keeping your hands parallel and facing the ground. So if you're feeling only your shoulders during planking, not only may you be rocking forward, so not driving back through your heels, but you might find you actually benefit from bringing your hands together and letting your elbows flare out. While it does put your shoulders into internal rotation, which is something to note if you do have sort of that forward flex posture from sitting a lot, it can also help you support your shoulders so you don't end up with neck or shoulder aches and pains. If you do have problems, you can always go back to the standard where your palms are facing the ground and your elbows and forearms are parallel. But think about packing your shoulders, especially if you struggle to engage your back. Remember, the plank is a full core movement. You're not just trying to hold longer, you're trying to create that shakeage and engage everything as hard as possible. Even run through the list of what you should feel working as you hold. A lot of times with clients, I'll say, flex your quads, drive back through your heels, brace your abs, because sometimes when we remind ourselves of what we should feel working, we engage it a little bit harder. And that brings me to mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is letting our lower back take over. In an attempt to hold longer, or even to try and do a harder variation of the plank than we're maybe ready for, we let our lower back compensate. But guys, if you don't feel your abs working during the plank and you feel your lower back taking over, guess what's actually being worked during the plank? Your lower back. And if you want to work your abs, that kind of doesn't really work for you. So you actually need to feel your abs working during the plank if your whole goal is to strengthen your core and strengthen your abs. So to fix your lower back taking over, use a posterior pelvic tilt as you hold. Think about tucking your hips towards your ribs or sort of tilting your pelvis under. This will not only engage your glutes more, but it will make your abs work harder as well. You want to really focus on what you feel working during the movement, because if you sag your hips or push your butt up in the air and you don't feel your abs working, you're not going to get the full benefit of the plank. So holding longer isn't going to do anything, especially if you feel your lower back engaging. So make sure you use that tilt. If you find that you really struggle to engage your abs, remember that your abs work with spinal flexion. While it looks really strange, the planche plank can actually be a great way to build up to a full basic plank. What you're doing with the planche plank is flexing your entire spine to make it easier to engage your abs. So while it might feel like, you're rounding your back, which you actually are, it's a great way to build that core engagement so you can build towards that full plank. And then remember, if the variation of the plank that you're using is too difficult, you can always modify it. So mistake number 3 is letting your lower back take over. Building off of that, I want to talk about a mistake I see people making when they're trying to modify the plank. They always go down to their knees. While the knee plank can be an option if you don't have an appropriate incline to use, or a bench or a table or a bar, the thing is you're not actually learning to engage everything properly from your shoulders to your heels. When you use the incline, you are learning how to engage everything correctly. So if you need to modify the plank whenever possible, use that incline. And remember, you have to earn harder variations of movements. If you're feeling your lower back take over, if you're not able to engage everything correctly, if you're not making it a full core movement, guys, from the ground, don't be afraid to modify. Remember, you earn the harder variation. So use that incline to modify to correct any of these different mistakes. After you've mastered basic plank form, you can then use different variations to target your specific needs and goals. Want to work your lower abs more? Use an extended plank. Want to target your obliques? Try a rotational plank. Planks can be great anti-rotational and rotational movements, and you can vary them to meet your specific needs. Even if you're still beginning and you need to use the incline, a lot of the different variations can be done off of the incline. Just remember, the most important thing is that you feel the correct muscles working. So if modifying helps you do that and feel those muscles working harder, that's going to be way more beneficial than trying to do a harder variation just to have done the harder variation. So to recap, so you can get more out of your planking, stop focusing on holding longer over holding harder. Make sure you're remembering this is a full core movement, and even think about the different muscles that should be working, running through them as you hold. And then stop letting your lower back take over. Because if you feel your lower back working during the plank, your abs aren't getting the full benefit of the movement. If you like the video, make sure to like it, comment below if you have any questions, and subscribe. We're posting new videos each week. Plus, check out the different plank variations if you want to have some fun with your planking.